Okay. Hi, Perry. Thank you very much for coming on the Plant-Based Revolution podcast. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend it with me. And so today's podcast, we're kind of a little slight change of plan in terms of not wholly talking about diet and lifestyle, but we want to talk about more male masculinity issues. I've known Perry for a few months now. We connected at a mastermind program, which was in April. So we both shared our stories openly within a group during that time. I know Perry's gone through some experiences of his own, which I think would be great to share. But really kind of just want to talk about the issues that men are facing in the 21st century, the pressures of being a man as well, and sort of how Perry himself has dealt with that and how he's kind of accomplished that and changed and embraced himself and the challenges he's faced along the way. So Perry, what we'll do first of all, we just want to touch on just a bit about who you are, tell listeners what you do, where you're from, and so they know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, sure. Neil, thank you so much for bringing me on your show. It's awesome. And I feel honored. So thank you for letting me do that, because I'm so grateful, because everyone who brings me on to a show like this is an opportunity for me to share my story and to help change other people's lives. So thank you for letting me do that. Now, a bit about me. So my name is Perry Power. I am from London, the UK. So my story, right. So my mum, she walked out when I was about 4 years old. So my dad raised me for a couple of years. He met a new bird who became my stepmom, and they got married out in SA in South Africa, and I was his best man, which is cool. I must have been like, Christ, maybe 8 or 9 years old, giving the rings over, which is quite cool.
You
No
ever
idea
give a
what was
speech
going
as
on,
well?
but
You ever give a
best man
speech as
speech,
well?
yeah, did a toast. So yeah, that was awesome. Now I think to do with masculinity, to do with, a lot of, now here's a crazy thing, right? And I'll be going back and forth my story into masculinity, is that masculinity is obviously huge amongst men, but it's also very relatable to women as well, whether it's themselves or whether it's their husbands or partners, their dads, their brothers. So I think it's definitely beneficial to them. But the start of my journey to do masculinity is that when I was much younger, I used to get sexually abused by my nan's husband, Michael, which was my granddad at the time. And he was doing it for a while, sometimes with people in the same room. And it's at that time I didn't know he was doing anything wrong, because he was my granddad, and you look up to those people, right? You respect your elders, and when you're at that age, you're vulnerable, you're easily led, you're easily manipulated, like I was. And he just never led me to believe that what he was doing was wrong. So I never talked about it, because I didn't feel like anything was worth talking about. But I do remember, I think as it went on, I knew that it was wrong. Because I remember once when I was the first time, 'cause I was very close to my nan, but the first time I stayed around there, I remember crying. I was saying to my auntie, who's my dad's sister, my dad that was there, I don't want to stay around. And I said, Perry, just stay around, stay around. So, all right then. And then, but I remember being taken up to bed in the spare room. My nan and Michael were standing on the other side of the room, and they were just saying goodnight to me. I remember just staring at Michael, and I was wishing that he wouldn't come in, because if he was doing that to me in broad daylight, I didn't know what he was going to do at night. Luckily, he didn't walk in the room at night. Luckily, it was a peaceful sleep. But I think after that experience, I then it got out, because my dad was talking to me in the car one time, and he was asking. Now my dad is very, and I'll get onto this in a second, but my dad is very, very good at manipulating people, not necessarily in a bad way, but to get them to talk, right? He's been very good as like a copper or a detective or something. He's very good at doing stuff like that. And he managed to get me talking around the topic, and I ended up talking about it. And then he was like, whoa, hold on a second, what did you just say? And I said it again. And I don't remember much, because it's a bit of a phasey, because I was quite young. But I know that he went around there, confronted him. He denied it, of course. And I never saw him again. And he died of a heart attack a few months later. But I remember from that experience, as I go out into the open, only to a handful of people, I chose to not talk about that ever again. I remember literally grabbing that experience, pulling it into a chest, lock the key, throw the key away in the mind. Never talk about it again. Now, as time went on with that, in the beginning, I wouldn't think about it much because I'm young. I've got friends. You go out and play with sticks and stones, in the woods kind of thing. Like, you don't think about it because stuff is on your mind. But as I grew older and sexual abuse started to come a little, I mean, it's still quite hit. Well, I say quite, it's very hidden away, even though a lot of stuff is coming out in the news. But that won't even touch the surface in terms of how popular it is in the world. But it's doing great in terms of coming out there and people are finding their voice. But as I grew older, it started to become a bit of a talking topic of it happening in society. And as I was exposed to that, I started to really judge myself for not talking about it. I started to hate myself. I started to not like who looks back at me in the mirror, because I started to hate myself, not love myself, no respect. It damaged my intimacy and my relationships, because I really judged myself, and I thought, like, if I was like, there's no way I'm going to tell this to anybody, because if I tell people that I was sexually abused as a child, not by a stranger, by my own granddad, and I chose to not talk about it, not bring it up, I thought people would judge me, right? I thought people would outcast me, not include me. I have no friends and I'd be lonely. So it caused me to keep it within myself. And as we all know, especially you listeners, that we're our own worst enemies, right? And every single one of us has a voice inside our own head. And I used to go through life trying to delete this voice, trying to get rid of this voice. But I've come to believe now that you can't get rid of the voice inside your head. But what you can do is you can manage that voice. You can control that voice. You can decide whether it's that voice that's talking or whether it's you that's talking. But when I was growing up, I thought that voice was me as well. So that was a troubling point. And now going back onto my dad, me and my dad were best friends, growing up. And he used to be so relating to fitness, he used to be a bodybuilder when he was in his late teens, early 20s, right? He was heavily into fitness, and life hit him and he stopped training just because of life, right? As they say, the excuse. And he hadn't trained for about 15, 20 years. Now, when I was growing up, I have an acting background. I'm a performing arts guy, and I went to college to study acting. And when I left college, I was like, I want to go and do traveling. I've always wanted to travel, so I want to go and travel. So me and my girlfriend at the time, we went traveling around Australia and around Hong Kong. And then when I came back, I was like, right, this is the time. This is the time to start acting. So I went and got some crappy jobs, and it just didn't work out with the jobs. I was like, right, what do I like doing? And it was fitness. Right, put two and two together. I want to start training people. So I became a personal trainer. Said to my dad, I was like, Dad, let me train you. I won't charge you a penny, but let me just start training you. So I can start getting you back on the right track. Because obviously, if you haven't trained in 15, 20 years, those habits are going to spill over, and keystone habit, that's what I like to call it. Keystone habit is when you work on one habit and it spills over to everything else. So with him, his habit was not working out. His habit was unhealthy habits, and they spilled out. So his eating wasn't right. He was an alcoholic, but he would drink a little bit more occasionally than a social drinker, but nothing that was problematic. And so I asked him to train, and his excuse was, I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this. He's like, son, you don't even know what training is. You should have seen me back in my heyday. I was like, all right then, Dad. All right, mate. You keep on going on with that. And that was one excuse. The other excuse, which is he would give me when I carried on pushing him, is like, right, we're training on Sunday. That's the only time I got available, which was bullshit. He had more time, right? He had more time than just a Sunday. But when it came to the Sunday, what do you think happened? He threw me an excuse, and he couldn't train on the Sunday. And I carried on like that, and he just didn't happen in terms of training. Now, I wasn't living at home at the time. Now, when I was living at home, which was before I went traveling, he was drinking a little bit more than what was problematic. Like before, he was drinking a little bit more than socially, but now he wasn't an alcoholic, but he'll keep it between me and him. So like he might, I don't know, maybe like once a month, he'll show me an empty vodka bottle and he goes, oh, go and fill it up with water for me, son, and put it back in the cupboard so Mum doesn't find out. And I was like, okay, I want to talk about it because it felt like I'm stabbing him in the back because we were best mates. then I went traveling, and then that hit home to him because, like I said, I was his best mate, and he felt like I was his only friend as well. He was going through a lot of mental health issues, and my dad. This is why I'm very passionate about masculinity. My dad is the pinnacle um, example of a man's man. You know, a Jack the Lad, as we call him in the UK, and he's not a vulnerable guy. He doesn't get vulnerable. He's the man's man. You know, and he doesn't get emotional, or when he does, he hides it. And he felt like, and he took everything like emotionally as well, but to himself, right? He wouldn't express it. And it started to get worse and worse and worse. So when I left to go traveling, it really hit home to him because he felt like his right arm had been ripped away from him, you know. And but I went traveling, obviously, and then when I came back, I then moved. Well, shortly after that, I moved. So I live just outside of London now. Got my own place with my girlfriend at the time, and I wasn't able to be at home to monitor him, right? And but he would constantly text me, he would call me, he would pop round, and it started to get worse with him. So he started to drink more. He became an alcoholic, and he ended up. He was always denying it. He was always denying it. And I remember once I went round for dinner, and my grandma said that she noticed my dad went out into the car about 3 or 4 times during the day. And then she's like, why is he going out to his car and not coming back with anything? And one time she looked out and she saw him lean into the back of the car and take out like out of the back seat, like a short, small black bag, which obviously had a bottle in it, and he would drink it in the front, screw the cap back on and put it into the back of the seat in the car. And he would just sit there for like 10 minutes, just staring out into space. And then he will come back in. She goes, I caught him. And I asked him red-handed, and he said no. So she goes, okay. So she went to dinner that night, which my brother, who's 13, Travis, and my mum was there, and she brought it up at the table. So not only so at that point before he could lie to my grandma, but now he has to lie to his son and his wife. And he didn't lie then because there's too much on the line, I think, you know. And he became honest. He goes, yeah, I'm drinking heavily. And they said, right, let's get you down to AA meetings. And he didn't. Well, he went. I'm doing quotation marks here. He went, but it didn't last. We think that he only went to the first one. And here's the thing: like my dad was a kind of guy who didn't want to admit that he had a problem. You know, he's too prideful. Pride is there. If you admit you got a problem, that's going to impact your pride. You're not a man anymore. You need to deal with this, right? And him going to an AA meeting and seeing all these other people there who were visual alcoholics who had accepted that they're alcoholics, who had accepted they had a problem, that means he had to accept he had a problem. And there's no way, I knew my dad like the back of my hand, there's no way he would have done that. So I reckon he went to the first one, he saw that, he goes, fuck this, he walked out, and for a couple of weeks, he would leave the house to go there, but he didn't go. And then after a few weeks, my mum confronted him, and he goes, oh, I just didn't enjoy it. But so he denied that help. And then Christmas time, he had a seizure in a restaurant. Luckily, he was eating, and he all of a sudden he was just on the floor. Luckily, there was an off-duty paramedic a couple of tables down. He came and saved the day. And ever since then, he was going downhill. So like I say that about 4 years ago, right? 4 years ago, 3 years on, if that makes any sense. He had a 3-year period where he was just going downhill. So he's drinking more. He wasn't eating. When he was eating, it wasn't anything good. His mindset deteriorated. He was negative. He was just really going downhill. But then when that seizure happened, that was it. It was like game over. He became a recluse, lived inside his own house. And then all of a sudden, he let everything get to him. And he visually let everything get to him. Like he would cry openly, you know, and but it was an unhealthy way of letting everything get to him. You know, he was on blood pressure tablets. He became diabetic, like everything under the sun. Like his immune system obviously just went to pots and everything just got to him. And then June the 1st, 2017, last year, I got a text from my brother, Travis, and he sent me 2 pictures. One of them was a picture of an ambulance van outside the house. Second picture was of my dad lying on the bed with the paramedic standing next to him. So I called up my brother. I was like, yo, what's going on, man? And so obviously I was panicking, and he goes, oh, let mum talk to you. She goes, Perry, calm down, nothing to worry about. Basically, he had a pain in the stomach. Now, my dad texted me that morning. I remember this. I saved the text. He texted me that morning and goes, son, don't worry about coming around today. Just pop around tomorrow. Because I was meant to be helping him build some cabin. He goes, just pop around tomorrow. He goes, but I've been up all night. I've got a pain in my stomach. So I was just like, oh, okay. Is that hay fever? Or because he's suffering really bad from hay fever at the time. I was just like, is it hay fever? I have no idea. And but I only messaged him like 4 or 5 hours after he sent me that original text. And so mum was like, yeah, he had a pain in the stomach this morning. So we called the ambulance, and basically his blood sugar levels are off the chain. So they just got taken down to the hospital and even at his blood sugar levels. So I was like, okay. She goes, we're going to go visit him when we just finished our dinner. And long story short, my brother called me up 2 hours later and told me that he is dead. And he was in the back of the ambulance van. He had a heart attack instantly. Just very randomly had a heart attack and passed and didn't even make it to the hospital. And it's crazy is because I was in whoever's gone through grievance, I mean, they know like the roller coaster you go through of being in denial. I didn't believe any of it. I got the call. I broke down, yes, but I only broke down for about 30 seconds. And after 30 seconds, I was like, nah, this is bullshit. My dad's lying. This ain't real. And I was smiling. As if I was some bloody lunatic of a horror movie. You know, I was smiling. And my cousin, who I'm very close with, who my cousin grew up without a dad, and my dad played her father role figure. So she was very close. And she called me up. She was sobbing right. And she goes, Perry, is this true? I was like, there's no way it's true. I'll let you know soon, but there's no way it's true. That's what I said to her in the car on the way there. But obviously, when I went down there, I saw him in the bed and I saw him. And I think I had the realization that he had when the seizure happened. Is like, we ain't invincible, man. We can go and live in life as if like we're hard as nails and nothing can get to us. And I think it's very easy to live like that until something happens to you. And then you got 2 choices. You can either carry on living in denial or you can accept it. So that was June the 1st last year. And just over, what was it been like 13, 14 months? I've been on a journey of self-discovery, of dealing with my masculinity issues, based on a lot of the traits that I saw that I've inherited from my dad and working on those traits. But yeah, that's why I'm very passionate about getting on this episode with you and talking about this subject, because it plays such an integral part in my life and in my family's life that it's insane. But yeah, that's my story.
No, Perry, that's amazing, man. Obviously, I've known you for a few months, but I didn't actually realise how soon your dad did pass. You know, last year. I thought it was a bit further away than that. So, mate, I appreciate your strength and your openness with that, because you know, grief is a hard thing for anyone to deal with. So, big respect and love to you, mate, on that one. But yeah, I mean, we'll go back a little bit on that story, because you know, I mean, that's powerful in itself, just what you talked about. So the listeners are going to definitely appreciate your honesty there, which is amazing. But going back, you know, like I said, this episode more about male masculinity, how that's affecting, you know, society at the moment. But to the point where the first instance where you were being abused, and then you said you had to bottle it up, what were your thoughts in your head, do you think, at the time, to reasons why you didn't want to share it? Because obviously you were insecure about talking about it. How did you feel people will react to you by opening up? What kind of feelings do you think that you would experience? Because you know, if you're hiding it up, what do you think by hiding it? Do you think you were protecting? And you know, if you were going to talk about it eventually, which you have done now, what did you think how would people perceive you in that sense?
Yeah. I think that two big reasons why I chose to not talk about it. One of them is because I didn't want to accept that part of my life. I didn't want to accept that happened. So me not talking about it, me not talking about it, it didn't happen. You know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people that have had stuff like that happen, which I think a lot of people, not abuse, but you know, something has happened, no matter what it is, and they've decided not to talk about it. The biggest reason that they don't want to talk about it is because they don't want to acknowledge the fact that it happened. You know?
Yeah.
So one of the big reasons is for me, because I didn't want to believe that it happened, and me talking about it was me accepting that it happened. And then the other big reason why I didn't want to talk about it is because I knew that if I was to have brought myself to the point of expressing and sharing that time in my life, I just didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want people to point fingers at me and to shame me and to hate me and to be like, oh, you know that guy Perry? Yeah, well, the one I got abused. Yeah, I know, it's a bit strange. I mean, sometimes I think, oh, maybe they're thinking, you know, oh, he's a bit strange, stay away from him. But then other times I'm like, I don't want people to like smother me with, oh, bless him, bless him. Let's like do everything we can to help him. I mean, I know people think that that's the right thing to do, but that can also cause somebody not to want to talk about it, you know?
Yeah. Do you think that's almost, as a man, you feel like showing a weakness, and then obviously being supported because you've, you know, that's, you know, you weren't in control of that situation because you were too young. But even at that age, you feel maybe that you should have been able to do something about it because you're a man. Like, do you feel there's like almost like a weakness there that you've shown, and then being honest about it, you've kind of said that, almost admitting that you're weak. You're not weak, but it's just a thought process of
Yeah.
like, I shouldn't have let that happen to me, basically.
Yeah, for sure. You know, us men, you know, we should be gladiators, right? We should be the ones leading the armies. And if a problem does occur, we should be able to fight it. We should be able to tackle it and win, to seize the day as a hero. So having something like that where I didn't quote unquote win, I
Mm.
lost because I was being sexually abused, and there's no way of winning about that. You know, me, that's not winning. And if I was to talk about it, it's that means that yeah, maybe feel like I wouldn't be a man, you know, because I wasn't able to deal with the situation. Now, when I was younger and I decided to not talk about it, all of this, what I just said now, wasn't in play. Like, I don't, if I was to try and think back when I was at that time, that age, I didn't feel like I had the, the mental space and the knowledge to understand what masculinity is and that I should be a man.
Yeah.
Some people at that age may be like that, but I wasn't at that age. I had no idea that all this was even a thing, you know.
Mm.
It's just I think I just didn't talk about it just because, to be honest, I can't 100% remember why. I know I think I just did it because it was the easiest thing to do. And when you're an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, your 8 and 9, 10-year-old friends that you go and play with at school, they don't talk about this, you
Yeah.
know. So I'm like, well, so it wasn't really an option for me to talk about it because it wasn't a thing you did, you know.
No, it's true. I remember a friend of mine at school, his mum had breast cancer, and we were about 11. And I remember coming to school once and said, "Oh, mum just died." And I remember that age. I don't remember, you know, now I would say, "Mate, let's have a chat," but I think we just carried on at school, just got on with
Yeah,
lessons, and you just do everything that you know how to do at that age because you haven't got the years of experience to be able to, you know, you're still learning and developing your mind. So that's understandable that you carry on as being a kid. You just want to be a kid, don't you? Like,
yeah,
enjoy
yeah, yeah,
yourself being a kid, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's it.
Okay. How has things changed? I know you've recently opened up about that issue, um, you know, with your audience, and when we were at the mastermind, you talked openly about that. Which, was that the first time you talked openly about it, when we were at the mastermind, or you talked about it before that?
Yeah, so this is definitely a bit of a journey to talk about now. Is that so when I was at the mastermind, I remember I did a post about this. Like you know, your listeners can go and definitely check it out on my page. I did a post about it where I talked about my experience when I was at the mastermind. So I remember sitting there on the couch, and there was 5 of us, right? And James and George, they said, right, let's go around the room and everybody introduce yourselves. And then they started at the other side. So I was the furthest one in this half a circle. So I was the furthest one. So I would have either been first to talk or last, right?
Yeah.
Now they started on the other side of the room, and I remember when it was going through, like I wasn't listening to anybody talk because because I remember, I don't know why, because that wasn't the first time in my whole life somebody said, "Well, Perry, introduce yourself," and I had struggled, you know, and but I didn't. I think it's just it was the atmosphere, it was the vibe, and I think, to be honest, I really do that. because my dad had passed away, that's probably maybe like 8 or 10 months before the mastermind. That was definitely a big point in me where, because I was sharing the experience of my dad, like to my friends and that. And that got me in, that sort of like broken the ice in terms of being able to share, you know, in a way. And I know I was sitting there, I was like, right, okay, Perry, you need to talk about yourself, you know, and I was asking myself questions. Like, I was like, well, how much should I say? Where do I start in my life? What do I talk about? What do these guys want to hear? And I didn't have the answer before. Right, Perry, you're up, so talk to us about yourself. I didn't have it planned out. And
Yeah.
then, you know, they were like, Perry, start talking. And I remember just sitting there, sinking into the sofa, not knowing what the first words were going to be. And all of a sudden, my mouth just started, my lips just started moving. A tone came out, and I just started speaking. And I never planned to start talking about my sexual abuse. I didn't have a game plan. It
Yeah.
just came out. So it was obviously just felt like the right thing to do. And so that was the first time I had ever spoken out, other than the close family members, talked about the sexual abuse with Michael. So yeah, so that definitely was the first for me. I don't know, when I was talking about it, I couldn't look at anybody in the eyes, especially not you guys, because all of these years of thinking that everybody was judging me, thinking that everyone was going to hate me when I talked about it, I felt like that was now going to come out and become a reality when I talk about the story. So yeah, so I talked about it, and then obviously like you guys just gave me your love and appreciation. And then that really got me into thinking, because when I was driving back from the mastermind, I was saying to myself, I was like, come on, Perry, you need to tackle this hurdle. Like, you've kept this to yourself for over 15 years. You need to start telling people. You know, you need to start telling people. And I think is it Malin, right? How do
Marlon,
you
yeah,
pronounce the name? Yeah, Malin. Yeah,
yeah,
she wrote. You know, in the mastermind event, we had the cards, right?
yeah, yeah,
She wrote on the card. She's saying, "Thank you for sharing that. It really opened up the group, and we loved that you was able to trust us." And I think that really helped me go into like a deep thought process of like, so if that helped her, and I know that would have. I know you came and spoke to me in the kitchen, thanking me for sharing it as well. I was like, if that helped them, it could help other people, you know.
yeah,
So I was driving home, and again all of these thoughts of judgment, and I was like, but I'm meant to be a man, and if I come out and, you know, saying that a man being sexually abused in society's eyes, that trumps what a man is, what they stand for, you know. And then I remember sitting in my car, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to repeat this story over and over and over by telling one friend at a time and one family member at a time. I'm going to create a video talking about it and put it on social media and tell the world instantly. Jump into the deep end. It took me like 5 or 6 tries and all these thoughts in my head, because we know these keyboard warriors that live on Facebook, right?
yeah,
And I just kept envisioning these hateful comments and these disgusting messages coming through, and took me 5 or 6 tries. Each try I was crying, and I think on the 6th try, the try that actually got on the Facebook, I think I was all cried out by that point. But I posted it, right? And I sat in that car for 10 minutes, just fighting the urge to not go onto Facebook and delete that video. And I went on there, and there was like 2 or 3 likes and 1 comment, yeah, but there was over 100 views. And I just went into a dark pit. I was like, hold on a second. And you start analyzing everything, right? I was like, there's over 100 views and only 2 or 3 people have liked it. I was like, so that means over 90 people fucking hate me. Over 90 people are judging me because they haven't spread any like, or they haven't, you know what I mean? And I was like, and I just started hating myself. I was like cursing in the car. I locked my phone off, threw it in the back of the car, drove home, because, you know, in my eyes, over 15 years has become true. Like, people are
yeah,
judging me. You know, so I'm living inside my own head. That's what we do. People that give into these masculinity and believe that it should be a man, you live inside your own head. I remember going home, going onto Facebook, and wow, the amount of likes, the amount of love, the amount of comments, nothing. This is the thing, nothing. And that was about 5 or 6 months ago. So to today, 6 months later, I haven't had 1 bad comment. We've got nearly 2,000 views, loads, like, it's just pure love, right? And then I came to realize that, you know what? All of this judgment, all this hate, was inside my own head. All this judgment was judging myself. All this hate was hating myself. It was no one else, you know? Whereas we think that it's other people that's going to hate us, that's never the case. It's just we're hating ourselves. And, you know, and here's the thing. When I shared my story with that particular video, I mean, I can guarantee I helped hundreds of people who didn't message me or comment or whatever, that didn't notify me. But loads of people did notify me at how I helped them. There was one guy that was in America who his family's on the other side of America, and he's on the other side chasing his dreams. And there was one particular family member who's going downhill, and they want him to fly back home to help out. And he didn't want to because he was chasing his dream. He felt like he'd be going against everything he's standing for. And he put himself into such a huge, dark pit, right? Really dark, negative space. And watching my story helped him get out of it. And ever since then, I was like, you know what? I helped him get out of that through my past experience. Everything I've gone through, all the darkness, I've put it into a light, and it's helped him. I was like, right now, every single day, I need to do that. And I need to make it a point and a mission that I can help one person a day. And that's everything I stand by. Because I chose to go against what masculinity stands for. I chose to change it because I was tired of living by that. Because me living by it was living inside my own head and not talking to people because I was scared of judgment or not being a man anymore. But now my whole verdict of what being a man has completely changed.
Yeah, I mean, Barry, I mean, the video, I remember watching it when you posted it. It was gripping, you know. Probably a good, 10 minutes long or more on it, and it was like
17 minutes.
Yeah. And I was, the whole way just watching it. I think I was out and about on my phone, and I was like getting emotional, watching it. And I'll definitely put the links to the video in the show notes because I think it's a great video for everyone to watch because you're so honest and you tell the story so well as well, which everybody can relate to. And I think it was absolutely amazing. And like we said, the mastermind was a real big change for a lot of us, I think, because it was very open. None of us really knew any of us when we got there, but a whole week together, we felt very connected, which was good. But how do you think, now you've shared that story, how do you feel in yourself? How do you think your close friends, that might have seen it, reacted to the video, and how do you feel, that it's benefited you by just, being open?
Yeah, it's well, in regards to friends, it's brought us closer together. They reach out to me. One of my best mates in London, he's like, "Shit, Perry, I didn't know you went through that. Wow." And then he just like, "I'm so proud of how far you've come," and that's brought us closer together because it brought us on a more intimate level. And sharing that and going through this journey, especially the last 6 months, it's opened my eyes up to what being a man is, right? Like, I think if somebody said to me, "Perry, describe a man," it would be vulnerable. I think vulnerability is the biggest thing. And the thing is, society's definition of being a man and masculinity, what people think it is the complete opposite of vulnerability. You can't show vulnerability, But ever since I aim to show vulnerability every single day. One of the big things that people say about me when they see my content and how I come across social media and videos like this is I'm transparent, I'm real, I'm raw. And that's because I've decided to take off all these masks. I believe that men wear masks, guys. Yeah, like guys listening, if you haven't listened or read the book Mask of Masculinity by Lewis Howes, I highly suggest it. Changed my life. Made me realize that men especially wear all these different types of masks, whether it's a sexual mask, the athletic mask, the violent mask, and in particular for men, it's a stoic mask. Men wear these masks, and depending on the different settings, you may go to a party and put on this sexual mask to be a certain way around women, and when it comes to being vulnerable, they put on a stoic mask because they want to block that and wear a shield. But I didn't know that all these existed, So ever since I shared that story, that's how it's changed me. It's opened my eyes up to these different masks, and it's made me become, I think the key word here is self-aware. It's made me self-aware of, let's just say something happens and I've subconsciously put this mask on and I'm acting a certain way. I've now gotten into a habit where I'm like, hold on, Perry, you're wearing a mask here. Take that mask off, now react. And it's completely different, it's been huge change. I don't know what your experience has been like, because I know you agree a lot with the masks.
Oh, absolutely, mate. Perry, I've watched, I've listened to the audio book of Masculinity. It's an amazing book. Recommend it to anybody out there. It's fantastic. I don't know if you've seen The Mask We Live In on Netflix as well, the film. Have you seen that at all?
No, I haven't. What
So,
was it? Documentary?
yeah, it's a documentary. I think it was what inspired Lewis Howes to write the book, and they kind of almost came out at the same time. But it's called The Mask We Live In, which talks about, the pressures that men face to be a man, and how that changes throughout our adolescence and into adulthood. So when we're quite young, then they touch on when we're kids, we're quite open and play quite a lot, and we show vulnerability and love to one another as a kid. But when we get to like a teenager, that divides up a little bit, because showing affection may be seen as a weakness within teenagers and little groups or settings, and how they live. And then the pressures of being like we've talked about, almost like an athletic male in high school. You got to be, if you were doing drama like you're very passionate about, that might not be seen as very manly, because you like doing speech and drama when you should be doing playing sport, being in the football team.
Rugby.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
very, very good film to watch, man. I'll definitely check it out. It's brilliant. And
Yeah.
but I think that's why we wanted to talk to you today about masculinity, because you've kind of gone through a lot of experiences that people can relate to. And the same for me. I would say I'm a metrosexual. I've been a hairdresser, so I've had that typical
You
feminine.
gay?
Yeah, you're gay. At first question is, "Hey, hairdresser, you're gay?" It's like, no, but I enjoy facial, enjoy looking after myself. Doesn't mean I like I'm gay. So it's it's a very interesting topic. I think there's a lot of social media campaigns, or even in the media campaigns, like with the Me Too movement now, against men, obviously being disrespectful for women, which is very, very good, very passionate about. But also I think it's almost forgetting about, when is there going to be, because how many, I'm sure it happens, but it's not talked about still, like female sexually abusing a man, or even, yourself going through that kind of experience. That is not openly talked about in the male community. Women are very good at getting together and forming a bond and talking openly about their feelings and joining forces for a movement to help other women. But men, as we've known, and we've both been culprits of it, we're kind of stubborn. We want to do it on our own. We don't want to join forces. We want to, like your dad almost feel like he could maybe do it. He didn't need help. He could do it on his own. Do you think there'll be a change eventually in that, or how do you think we can go about getting more men to be, I suppose, less masculine in the society sense, in those topics?
Yeah, no. You see, like, I don't know. That's a good question. Whether I think it will change, because as we know, men are so stubborn, and I have talked about this on social media, but this is the thing: like, whoever disagrees with me, or if they come attacking on what I'm saying negatively, I just block them. It's as simple as that. But there has been people. That's why I don't get into arguments or confrontations on social media. But I've seen these guys do it on other people's posts, where there's a lot of people that stand against, and the men obviously, who stand against this, what we're trying to do in terms of redefining what it means to be a man. And here's the thing that I want to make clear, right? Is that I'm not saying that men should now start crying at everything and start showing their emotions at everything. And what I'm trying to say is that you guys need to find a balance, because right now you guys don't have a balance. You're completely lopsided to completely one side, where let's say something's on the TV. Now listen, right? When like Britain's Got Talent on the X Factor's on, and someone comes out and they do something, they get the golden buzzer and they're crying on stage, I'm over here sobbing my eyes out on the sofa.
Mate, I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there.
Mate, I'm gone. I am gone. It's because, like, I'm looking at these guys, right, and you can tell that they have worked so hard for years and years and years and years and years, and their prayers have just been answered. Their hard work has just been appreciated by somebody, right? And it lets me, but before I would either force myself to not cry. 'Cause I'm like, I shouldn't be crying watching this. I'm a man, you know. I should be crying at maybe Gladiator, if that's something you should be crying at, if anything, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely not crying at X Factor. And here's the thing, like, you need to find a balance. You know, you need to, when the time comes where you should be a man, where you should take control. I do believe that men should be in control of things, right? I believe that's a balance, but I also think that men, when the time is right, and they feel like they should cry, they feel like they should grieve, they feel like they should be emotional, you embrace that. You be that side as well. Don't be one or the other. You know, like my dad, he grew up his whole life being a man's man. Then the last 3 years of his life, he completely went to the other side and would cry at everything, be emotional at everything, you know. He didn't have the balance. He went from one to the other. And that's what I want to say first, is because I think people are seeing our or hearing our voices to tell them that they should be one or the other and not find that balance, you know. So I just wanted to get that point across.
No, it's a very good point, Perry, because it's very, there's men obviously in society and in general obviously looked down as the breadwinner, and you still got to be strong, and it's important to have that balance, you said, because you still got to be strong for your family and support. You can't just be because women generally, I suppose, might be more emotional and vulnerable in a certain way, but that's the makeup of a female, and the makeup of a man is we carry more testosterone, so we should feel more empowered. But there's also, I think, I see in society, I don't know how you feel as a man, but there's still a lot of pressure, because obviously a man would have to be looked upon as muscly and big. And in that film, I would recommend you watch is that's how they kind of portray, like, and even for women, I suppose, like, see men, if you look at Gladiator, is a very good point, or in Men's Health magazine, men are always portrayed like James Bond characters as all, strong, muscly, powerful, going to get the girl, that kind of thing. They're not always, and if they're portrayed in any social media outlet like movies as a weaker character, they might be portrayed as gay or those kind of things. So there's still that kind of I don't know how to say it, but pigeonhole of a man in terms of certain genres, like you said, being one or the other. There's no cross between. You can't have James Bond being strong and saving the world, and then next scene crying in front of the TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And a good example is, have a look at Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel, he's a typical man's man, as in like how he's portrayed. Yeah. But if you look at him on social media, he's got a very good balance. I mean, he can be a man, but you can see some videos where he's crying. You can see some videos where he's singing and he's dancing. And that is, I think, a very good example. If somebody wants some concrete, go and follow this guy to see what I'm talking about. Vin Diesel was a prime example.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And even I would say probably The Rock, to a certain point, can show he's very good at showing his general side, even though he's he's a beast, isn't he?
Yeah, beautiful man.
He's a quality dude. But in terms of yourself, what do you feel? Do you still experience any pressures as a man at the moment? What would you say currently, after you've opened up a lot and you've achieved a lot more things? You're probably feeling very more comfortable yourself. But do you feel there's still certain pressures that you might experience just in what's around you in social media and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'll give you a good example. Is that well, like actually, I'll say this first in case I forget. Is that so me and my ex-girlfriend, so like we broke up probably about 2 months ago now, and we were together for 6 years, right? We still live in the same house, but I went through a time where, so like, I'm an entrepreneur. I stay at home, and I've been through a tough journey of of like, I think a lot of guys, especially PTs who are listening to this, or whatever situation you're in, when you're starting out something, the finances aren't there, and I was not a stay-at-home dad because there's no children around, but I was the equivalent of like a stay-at-home dad. And I'm trying to build a business whilst my girlfriend at the time, she was out working. So it was like a role reversal, you know. So like the common thing is the man goes out and works, makes all the money, puts the bread on the table, and the wife stays at home. She cooks, she cleans, looks after the kids. But in this situation, for years, I won't even say months, for years, I was the one at home. She was out working, but she had a good understanding. She knew that I wasn't at home just hoovering the carpets and sitting down not knowing what to do with my life. I'm trying to change lives while I'm at home, but it's just unfortunate the money isn't coming through to compensate for it. But I had a tough time coming to, fighting the fact that I'm a man at home and that it shouldn't be like that. I should be out there working. But then I'm like, well, if I'm out there working, I'm not going to be able to try and achieve what I trying to achieve at home, you know? So that was a big battle for me, really big battle. I obviously came over the battle and I realized, you know what, it doesn't, right now I'm basing this argument on gender. I was like, and what's the point in doing that? It doesn't matter if I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm at home, I'm out. Doesn't matter. But what does matter is that I'm trying to do something and achieve something. So I'm looking past the masculinity. I'm looking past the society's way of men should be out, women should be at home. So that's definitely been the biggest thing. But social media. Listen, 12 months ago, if I was to put a video of myself crying on social media, or put a video of myself or a post talking about something that makes me vulnerable, there's no way I would have done that. No way. But now I do it every single day. And I don't have any qualm, anything in terms of, but what if somebody says this? But I did. So it was just getting out of my comfort zone, pushing through it, and then realizing that all of that talk was inside my own head. It's all bullshit. It doesn't amount to anything. And now I'm helping people by being transparent, being raw, being vulnerable every single day. So that's been my biggest battle.
Yeah. Do you feel like now you're more comfortable in your own skin after feeling like you've gone through? You just feel more, in tune with who you are, like, and you know yourself a lot better after that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because listen, like we're all born, and you said this earlier, we're all born, we're kids, right? We're born as a blank canvas, and experiences is what paints that canvas to create the picture that we are today, no matter what stage we are in our life. So however we are is because of the experiences we've been through. So if when I was, being holding stuff in, being a man's man, I realized that was because that was being passed down through my dad, because I saw him do that over years and years and years. Christmas time after my nan passed away, it was the first Christmas without my nan, which we usually spend around her house. And I remember looking at my dad, and my dad started to get teary-eyed, but he couldn't cry there. He had to scurry off into the bathroom, shut the door, lock it, and only come out about 45 minutes later with a red face, because he couldn't bear to cry in front of us, because he lost his mum, which he should be able to do.
Yeah.
But I understand he didn't want to show weakness in front of his children, because he was a man. You don't do it in front of the family. But then I realized that, these listeners, like, I can guarantee you, if you weren't self-aware before, that you will start to now become aware of the traits that you had adopted from your parents, whether they're good or bad. And I realized that. So I went through journeys of fighting against these traits, because I realized that they were turning me into somebody that I wanted to not be. So when I started to get rid of these traits and started to tear off these masks and live as a human being and live raw and live being vulnerable, which is how we should be, I understand who I was, and I understand what I was standing for and what I was standing against.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant, man. And I think it definitely, I'm very lucky with my group of friends. We're quite open, and we share a lot. We share everything, and even cry in front of each other. We've done that and stuff, and it does actually, it wasn't a nice way of seeing it, but my friend's mum died recently last year. All of us went to the funeral, and I was upset, my mate was upset, but you see your mates that don't really necessarily see to be upset that often, so seeing them vulnerable kind of brings you all closer together and realize how important everyone is for each other. So I think definitely as a man, showing your vulnerability is important, because other guys will just appreciate that. They're not going to see that as a weakness. I don't think. It just, especially within your close family and friends, they're going to support you and actually will bring you closer together, won't it? So
yeah, it will do. I can relate to that, because I have been for many years the definition of a man's man. Like I wouldn't cry, I wouldn't do anything, but that gave me a certain reputation which I thrived on. You know, people saw me as being he's a bloke, man. He's a proper Jack the Lad. Like he's a man's man, and I loved that reputation. I loved to be seen as that. But I came to realize, which is another huge thing with masculinity, is ego. I was thriving off ego because that label that was given to me as, you know, Perry who doesn't give a shit about anything, you know, nothing can faze him. That brought me ego because it gave me attention. I'm like, well, why would I want to go against everything I'm standing for right now? Because then I feel like I'm going to lose all the attention. So I chose to accept my ego. And my ego, listen, ego's, yes, is bad, you know, but ego got me through a lot of things in my life, you know, and it did. Like ego helped me become confident in situations where I wouldn't have otherwise have been confident. It was like a false sense of confidence, but that came from the ego. If you see what I'm saying. So there's pros and cons to everything, but yeah, ego has been huge, man. Can cripple anyone.
Yeah. Well, you can see that all the time, especially within the health industry, and men thrive off being, you know, the best or lifting the biggest in the gym and all that kind of thing. Wherever, you know, that's ultimately could be to a detriment to the health because they might get injured themselves. So it's definitely having that. There's still a long way to go, but definitely we're on the right track, and you're on the right track, mate, with the work you do as well, which is awesome, man. So
appreciate that, man.
How would you, final one more question, how would you advise other men, if they're, you know, struggling, if they're listening to this today, you know, they're going through maybe insecurities that they need to open up with other people, and we've gone through our own journeys, but, you know, like I said, it's taken you 15 years. You know, when I opened up about my story, it took me probably about the same time, just to kind of just be open and honest about it. So if people have been thinking, you know, if a guy's listening to this show today is thinking about opening up to anyone close to him about an experience that he needed to share, that, you know, it's kind of been dragging him down, you know, he wants to lift that weight off his shoulders for the rest of his life eventually, and, you know, be free of it. What would your advice be about going about that? What steps could he take to try and just make it a little bit easier to do so?
Yeah. I mean, the only advice I can give is what I've been through, and I definitely don't be ashamed to get help, right? Like when my dad passed away, this is the thing. Like I'm not perfect. Like I mean, I may preach all this stuff, but like when my dad passed away, I took it hard, you know. Well, not on a day. I mean, on the day when we cremated him, and on that day, I didn't cry. You know, it's weird, but I didn't force myself to not cry. I had cried before, didn't cry on a day, cried after. You know, I still cry sometimes, and obviously, but my mom said to me, Perry, go and get help. Go and get help. Like you need to go and talk to somebody. You know, we're in the UK. NHS is free. Just go and get it. You know, and I chose not to. But here's the thing, right? I chose not to, not because of what the average man would do, where they're like, I don't want to do this because I don't need help. Because I'm a man, I can do this on my own. I mean, it's probably the same, but I've just worded it differently. But like, I chose to not go because I'm like, I've been in this self-development and this personal improvement journey for like 3, 4, nearly 5 years. I've read all these books. I should be able to handle this myself. Like I was coming at it from a different angle, but at the same time, it was still the same core reason I should be able to do this on my own because I've read all these books. I should be able to do it, kind of thing. And this is the thing, like, have I gotten over it? Yes. But if I was to have gotten help, I would have been able to handle it much quicker and maybe better, more efficiently. So to the guys out there, you know, like, but this is the thing, it's going to be tough. And me saying to you, just don't be ashamed to ask for help isn't going to be the switch for you to now not like go and ask for help, you know. But what I did with my story is I shared it to a couple of people first, to you guys who I trusted. Even I'd never met you before. It's weird. I trusted you guys. So maybe sharing it with a handful of people first might be the way to go, whatever it is that is holding you back. But definitely some practical advice is I'm a firm believer that we all have stories. Okay, we all have a story. Everything that we've gone through in life are chapters. You know, our lives are books, and our chapters have shaped us and they formed us to the person that we are today. So I do definitely think that all of your listeners, they should go away and think about their story, think about the chapters that they have gone through. Because you said this earlier, I think, actually with the film, that a lot of guys, the reason why I don't share and the reason why I don't open up is because they have tried to share and open up previously in their life, whether it's at school or in college, and they were pummeled for it because the guy said, "Oh, you're getting too touchy feeling here," or "Don't hug me, we don't hug," and that took away their trust, which they were prepared to give in the initial instant, but then their trust got betrayed. Maybe they shared a secret to their friend, and all of a sudden, a week later, that secret's all around the school. Like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again then, you know? So I think maybe again is to develop that trust again, you know, like don't blame one person, one incident from 20 years ago to now. I mean, just think like, here's the thing. I think all men they all know that they should be talking, right? They all know that they shouldn't hold it within them. They all know this. They're not stupid, but they still decide to carry on living the way they are. And I think they do that because they think it's easier.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing, like my dad thought the same and he's dead. And I was 23 and I was burying him before the age of 50. My dad is never going to be able to see me get married. My dad, he's never going to be the best man at my wedding. He's never going to see my grandchildren. And I can guarantee you right now, if he would have accepted help, if he would have confided in other people, believed he had friends, not kept everything inside of him, you know, believed that he was actually worthy, he wouldn't be he wouldn't be dead. He would still be alive, 100%, you know? So guys that's listening, if you feel like you're going down the same road as my dad did, or if you know, it's not going to end pretty. Simple as that. It really is not going to end well. You know, that's just me being raw here and being honest. So there is no magic bullet for you to stop being masculine. There is no magic bullet here. You're just going to have to do one thing at a time. Start trusting in other people. Share with somebody a chapter you've been through. Share with somebody the whole story. Put it on social media if you feel like you can do that. And just take these little steps, because you're going to have to celebrate these small wins and build up this trust and this sense of self-worthiness to then bring yourself up to become the person. And start reading books. You know, read the book that we talked about by Lewis Howes, The Master Masculinity. Go onto Netflix, watch that, educate yourself. And that's when I think you can start to take those masks off, because you have to be aware that you're wearing these masks. And you can only become aware when you realize that certain actions you're taking stands against who you are. It goes against your identity. And that's, I think, is the way you can move forward.
Yeah, awesome, man. That's perfect. That's a perfect note to end on, man. You summed it up perfectly. You know, in terms of just taking those steps, and like you said, just being aware in the first place. That's the first step, isn't it, to anything? If you're more conscious you are about these things, and more consciously you can make those changes. So, excellent, Barry. Man, it's been amazing speaking to you. How can anybody get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your story? Like I said, I'll send us a link and we'll post a video to your video that you did after the mastermind, so I can share that with everybody. But in terms of, I mean, we didn't really get into what you do, but give us a little insight into what you do now, in terms of your job, how you help other men remove their mask, and in terms of your roles and how people can kind of get a hold of you and get in touch with you through social media.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate that, Neil. So here's what I do. So I help entrepreneurs. It doesn't matter if you're not, to be honest, but if you're a man who wants help to get rid of their mask, I help with that. But my primary focus is I help entrepreneurs develop their story and find their voices, share their story consistently to help other people, change other people's lives, and then plug their story and their chapters into their personal brand to attract their ideal clients. So that's what I do. I help people believe in their own potential. Now, in terms of how to find me, how to follow me, a couple of ways. You got Facebook. Now, my name is probably the easiest name you can ever remember, is Perry Power. So just type me in on Facebook and you'll see me come up, Perry Power. I have a Facebook group called Storytelling for Entrepreneurs Safe Zone. So you can pop that in. or you got me on Instagram, which is Perry Willpower, which is even better. So my middle name's William, so Perry Willpower. So you can find me on Instagram. Guys, I had somebody reach out to me the other day, and it's like, Perry, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a relationship coach, and here's the thing, I'm not a fan of my last name. And when did you change your name? When did you change your name for your brand? I'm like, I was born with this name. I didn't change it. It's like, what? I was like, yeah. So you can find me on, you can find me on Instagram. Like when I was going through acting as well, people thought it was my stage name. I was like, no. I think my dad was just having a laugh,
Yeah.
Yes. So Instagram, Perry Willpower. That's the three ways. You've got Facebook group, Instagram, and we'll good from there.
And you do a podcast as well, Perry, don't you? They can listen to your podcast as well.
So yeah. Mind blank as well. Yeah, so I have a podcast which is called The Power Show. So every single day on Facebook, I go live every day without fail, whether it's a live with myself or it's a live interview, like this podcast. There's a live video interview, so you can find me on there. I interview thought leaders from all around the world, or on Spotify and iTunes called The Power Show, which is basically like what you're listening to now, which is where we develop on people's stories from all around the world, what they've gone through and what they've learned from it.
Awesome, mate. Perry, it's been an amazing episode. Really enjoyed you coming on, and it's been a nice change. Just talk about sort of male masculinity and share your story as well. And I'm sure everybody who's listening are going to learn a lot from that. So, man, I want to thank you again. Much love, much appreciated. You're a star. So, thank you very much, man.
No, thank you for having me on, man. I've loved it. So, thank you.
Yeah, no worries, Perry. All right.